Hi friends, this is Caitlin, and today we're making a fun treat box dressed up to look just like a Halloween gingerbread house. I'm using images from the Sweet Holiday stamp set by Paperie Ink, which I was given for being a guest designer with them this month. I also borrowed a few images from their Happy Haunting and Autumn is Calling sets, which I already had in my stash. I'm starting out by ink blending my cardstock that's going to make up the main base of our box. So you can see up in the top left corner, I was doing some swatching to try to figure out what combination of orange and brown was going to give me the right gingerbread kind of feel, and I landed on Crackling, Campfire, Vintage Photo, and Ground Espresso. You can see I'm not being overly particular about making sure I have a smooth blend. I figured with gingerbread, the way that the spices are and the way that the oven might have been, it's okay if things are a little bit rougher. I also knew I was going to be trimming out and folding this paper so much that it would be easy to cut out any of the parts that end up a little splotchy. The main piece of cardstock that I'm using measures 9.5 by 7 inches, and I'm using 110-pound white cardstock so that it would be very sturdy and it would be able to hold up to all of the scoring and folding we're going to be doing in a minute. For this main first pass of color, I stuck with just the Crackling, Campfire, and the Vintage Photo. The Ground Espresso we'll use in a little bit. I also went through with both of the ink colors I had used and pressing them onto an acrylic block and adding some water so that I could tap with my brush and get some speckles all the way throughout. Again, trying to give it that spicy cinnamon kind of feel. I mean, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, all of them. I'm a pumpkin spice girl, obviously, and I'm here for it. Now, I'll be adding all of the measurements and scoring information in the description box below for you, but on the landscape side, I'm scoring at 3 inches, 4.5, 7.5, and 9 inches. I had to shift mine over a little bit because my scoring board's not that big. On the portrait side, we'll be scoring at 1.5 and 5.5. I'm pretty sure that I actually scored this upside down, and I should have done it with the color up. If you know the answer to that, please leave me a comment down below. So I checked to see which side that giant splotch was on and decided that that would be the bottom of my box. So I'm adding one more score line at the 1/2 inch mark at what's going to be the top line of my box. That's where our hole punch is going to go to keep everything closed at the end. Now I'm going through and scoring all of the fold lines. This is the reason that I think I did it backwards. They were kind of hard to fold, and I'm not sure if it's because my cardstock was so thick or if I did it upside down. But either way, I'm glad I picked the cardstock I did because this box feels very sturdy at the end. Now it's time to start making our cuts, and we'll be cutting each tab from the top and the bottom, going right up to that horizontal line that runs the whole length of the card on either side. You can see I'm cutting slivers out of the sides of the smaller tabs, and that's just going to help to make sure everything folds up nice and easy. I first learned how to make boxes like these following Angie over at Chicken Scratch on YouTube, and once you get the hang of it, you can kind of change up the measurements for these to be whatever shape you want. Anything you want directly stamped onto your cardstock should be done before the box gets folded up. So I added this cute little back of the box sentiment, and I went in with my blending brush with my Ground Espresso and my Crackling Campfire just to rub over the edges to make sure that it had a little dimension and the edges of the box were defined. Next step is going to be gluing the box together, and for this I really recommend a tape runner. You can see here I'm gluing down the side top flaps so that they stick straight to the box, and I'm scoring my little tabs outward, different than the rest of how we did everything, so that those are where the hole punch will go to give it that kind of milk carton rooftop feel. And then I'm adding tape runner to each of the bottom flaps, gluing them in layers one on top of the other, as well as gluing that 1/2 inch side panel to the main front piece so that everything is nice and closed up. I die cut a small stitch rectangle as well as some grassy borders from Lawn Fawn and some of the scalloped frame, which I cut apart because we're going to use it for decoration, and a little Happy Haunting banner. I decided to go in with a liquid glue from HoneyBee stamps so that I would have a little more wiggle room and playtime to get these pieces exactly where I wanted them. I'm going in with the scallops all the way across the top on all 4 sides, just so it has that kind of icing cutesy feel, and I did this out of an orange gingham, which I think is a really cute nod at being sweet, but also a little Halloweeny. All of the pattern paper I used today is from My Favorite Things. Their 6x6 paper packs are probably my favorite. Them and Lawn Fawn are definitely my top 2. And as usual, all the products I use will be listed in the description box below. And now it's time to add the grass, and I'll be using one long strip that I scored to fit the front and sides, and one smaller strip that I used just to cover us up on the back. Now it's time to color in our super sweet gingerbread family, our little trick-or-treaters, Mrs. Claus turned candy giver outer, and the little cute puppy, kitty, and trees. And also pumpkins. We've got to have pumpkins. For all of the gingerbread skin, I don't like that choice of words, but for their skin tone, because that's basically what it is, I used E09, E15, and E13 for all of them. I sped up through this whole process because I figured it would be pretty repetitive, but you'll be able to see I do go in twice with each layer for each person, just to make sure that the saturation and the blend was really nice and smooth. I also went in with the R29 for their little blush dots and more of the E09 for their nose dots. When Sherry at Paperie Ink first asked me if I could do a project featuring the Sweet Holiday set, I was so excited, but when I sat down to start creating, I just could not bring myself to make a Christmas card. I know that it sounds so silly, but I just can't force it. I just love Halloween so much, and I also know that it's early for that. It's only August, and I'm over here drinking pumpkin spice already, thanks to Duncan, but I just couldn't make that Christmas card, so I appreciate her giving me the room to experiment and play and turn these little Christmas treats into Halloween treats. I also encourage you to shop your stash. Look around and see what stamps you may already have that you could use for a different theme than what you originally bought them for. It's super fun and it helps us just be creative. Worst case scenario, you don't love it and give it to your mom because she'll love it no matter what you give her. Now going in to do the cookie part of the trees, the border part, I only used the E15 and E13 just because there wasn't a ton of room, and I colored them the exact same, going in with a darker color on those little corners and then blending out with that E15. I'm also going in with my white gel pen just to give the eyes a little extra definition and help them pop in all of that dark gingerbready goodness. I also went in with the E09 for the darkest part of my pumpkins, followed by the YR18 and YR14. Those are definitely my go-to pumpkin colors. I also used the YR18, 14, and 12 for all of the rest of the orange that's going to be on this card, including the candy, the hat, and other of the outfit pieces. And sprinkles. Lots and lots of sprinkles. I really wanted to make sure that this little treat holder screamed Halloween, and so I used the same combinations of orange, black, purple, and green all over the card to make sure everything looked like it belonged in the same little gingerbread universe, but also that those colors just tell you it's Halloween straight off the bat. I also tried to make sure that each of my little people characters had some kind of green, orange, and purple on them, whether it was in their outfits or the accessory they ended up holding. I went in with my violet shades for this little candy as well as the cat sweater, and I thought that these would just really help to pop against those other colors. That triadic combination of the purple, orange, and green just really pops against each other. And for the puppy, I decided to go in with one shade from each combination to give him a little striped scarf. He's so cute. The Sweet Holiday stamp set comes with Mrs. Claus and Santa Claus, and so I decided to use Mrs. Claus here to be our happy homeowner giving out candy to these little trick-or-treaters. So she gets a cute orange and purple outfit that looks a little bit witchy to me. And then it was time to fill out the pumpkin stems and start coloring in those trees. I'm using the full 3-color blend for the main tree backgrounds, and I'll be doing the same exact coloring for both trees, so I have sped that up for you. And then going in with the sprinkles, I'm going in with only 2 shades of each combination. So 2 oranges, 2 purples, and 2 blacks, just to give this little sprinkles a little bit of shading and definition so that they blended in with everything else, but with such a small space, there was no way I was getting 3 shades in each of those. Next up was coloring in that little stitched rectangle panel I had die cut so it could be our door. I went really loose with this. I didn't really want to overthink it. So I just did a simple combination of my E50s, E59, E57, and E55, giving it kind of a soft wood grain feel. She's going to be covering up most of this once we glue everything together anyway, but I just thought it would be a cute little touch. One thing about Paperie Ink is that they don't have die cuts to go with their stamp sets, but their images are so cute and so easy to fussy cut, it really isn't a struggle or a hardship. So I fussy cut out each of these little shapes. I sped through that as well for you because I don't think that that's the most enjoyable thing to watch. And then I went through with a black water-based marker and edged all of the sides of the things I had cut out just in case I missed any little spots or there was any white showing. This really just helps to clean everything up, make it nice and neat so that when you glue it down, you don't have any little white slivers showing. Speaking of white, you know I had to go in with more of that white gel pen, add some patterns and some shine marks to our candy, things like that, just to boost up the detail and make sure these look super cutesy. Now is the best part, when we get to start gluing and everything comes together to build our scene. So I decided I wanted that little pumpkin to be on the edge, so I laid that first just as a place marker so I would know where my door should go. And at first I wanted my door to be center, but I thought that putting it to the side would add a little more interest and give me room for my trick-or-treaters to fit nicer, both on one side, like they were in a line walking up to the front door to say trick-or-treat. I also gave Mrs. Claus her little candy to be holding, and I knew that I wanted my green overalls gingerbread boy to be holding the other piece of candy, so I wanted him to be closest to her, and so I put the other one in his little beanie on the outside and then tucked the overall boy in the middle. Or girl, it could be an overall girl. Next, I decided to go with my images with no glue on them and just play around with spacing, figuring out what looked good and what was going to fit on the same side versus on the back, kind of laying everything out before I committed. Then I went in with that same liquid glue and put the tree and the little kitten on one side, the doggy and the pumpkin on the main back panel where that sneaky sentiment is, and then a tree by itself on the other side. Originally, I had planned to put my Happy Haunting banner on the top roof part, but when I was done, it just seemed like there was something missing in that upper space above the door. So I moved my banner there instead, lined up my top pieces and did my hole punch. And then before I tied everything together, I went in with these little tiny half pearls from Twiddler's Nook. They're so cute, and I just wanted to add an extra little detail because if this really was a gingerbread house, there would be all kinds of icing and candies and everything decorating the house, and so I wanted to give it just a little extra pizzazz on that scalloped border. The last step was to close it all up, and so I went in with a piece of black and orange baker's twine, looped it through the hole punch, and then I added a second piece around the top just to tie it in a bow and keep everything nice and secure. I absolutely love how this project turned out, and I think this would make a great party favor holder depending on how much time you have. It would definitely hold a lot of goodies. I appreciate you spending this time with me today, and I hope you'll subscribe so we can hang out and craft every Friday and sometimes Mondays too. Have a great day and happy crafting.